reconciling the world to himself and not imputing their trespasses to them, but has committed to us the word of reconciliation. And I could give you other verses, Romans 4 verses 6 to 8, where David talks about how lucky those people are to be under the covenant where their sins aren't counted against them. So we just want to be careful, because otherwise the conclusions we reach about God can be very faulty, because in the Old Testament there's some harsh realities. Families died for the sin of one person, people were taken out, but that's not the New Testament God. The New Testament God, you'll read words like, and he was moved with compassion. So that's point one. Point two, I wanted to just make it, then we got to bring this to a close because we're already over, is a great verse. You have such a tender heart about when things in your past, and how, the whole issue between consequences and grace. For me, Moses was kind of like the poster child of kind of blowing it, getting out of God's timing, and paying a very, very seemingly penal price for doing what he believed was in his heart. But this is a great verse, and you need to read it from the Amplified. I'm going to read this, and then Hebrews 11:27. But Hebrews 11:27, it says, and by faith, now this is 40 years after Moses botched it, after having to reflect on the backside of the mountain, after having to kick himself, how he went from the fresh prince of Pharaoh's house to sheep. It says, by faith, that's the key, he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, and endured, underline the word endured, that it says endured as seeing him who is invisible. The word endured in the original language in this text, it doesn't mean like he was on the backside kind of putting up with things. It literally means to look steadfast towards something. Does anyone have an Amplified? If you have an Amplified, it means it looks steadfast. This is deep, because when Moses has his burning bush experience, it wasn't like he was just, as hard as this is in our natural minds to conceive, it wasn't like he was just haphazardly walking around. It literally means, in spite of botching it for 40 years, he was steadfastly looking for God to give him a second chance. And that's powerful. In other words, he didn't even give up on himself. He knew that there were consequences. He knew, but it says, and I wish I brought my Amplified, it says, he endured. In other words, he was steadfastly looking for the chance, or when God would say, okay, probation period over, I'm ready to use you again. And that's literally what happened at the burning bush.